Welcome to the Orange Hammer Podcast. My name is Corbett Storick. I've been a licensed general contractor for 8+ years, specializing in new construction, renovation, furniture building. I'm the son of an architect and an interior designer, and I've been surrounded in this industry since birth, watching all aspects from concept, design, build, punch list, and of course, all the problems that come up in between. In my time in Durham, North Carolina, I've noticed a significant gap in knowledge between homeowners who need work and the people who do the work. On this podcast, I hope to break down the process of homeownership from the perspective of both the homeowner and the contractor in an effort to help raise the knowledge of homeowners about their homes and the construction/renovation process. I hope you enjoy. If you're enjoying the Orange Hammer Podcast, or if you have a topic that you want covered, or have recently done a project, please contact the Orange Hammer Podcast. The Orange Hammer Podcast is on Instagram and Facebook. Please like and subscribe, share on whatever platform you're enjoying your podcast on. Also, check out our YouTube channel, The Orange Hammer. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by CRS Contracting LLC for all your construction and handyman needs, new buildings to renovations, furniture building, EV charger install, or even a TV mounted. You can call me, Corbett Storick. It'd be my pleasure to help you. You can find me on Instagram at CRS Contracting. WSDG, the Walter Storick Design Group, specialists in architectural and acoustical consulting. Check out WSDG.com. And Taylor Bragg, for all your artistic needs in all mediums. You can find her on Instagram at brag_about_art. That's brag, BRGG, with 2 G's. She's the fantastic artist behind the Orange Hammer logo, and she did my fantastic table painting of my podcasting table. Episode 53. We'd like to welcome back Ed King. Ed, how are you doing this morning?
I'm okay.
Just okay.
I'm a little nervous.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get rid of those nerves.
I think
I
think it was the drive over here.
Well, are you sure it's not the sugar rush from those donuts?
That could contribute to it too.
You know,
a lot of sugar, a lot of cars passing me 85 miles an hour. That'll just send
really
your blood
this early on a Sunday, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, what is it like on Friday night here? Sunday
fun.
morning, everybody's like passing you on the right at 85 miles an hour. I feel like a little old lady, driving.
I mean, I had to take my nephew to the airport Friday. I had to get him there at 5:15 on a Friday, and it was
in the evening.
In the evening, so heart of Friday night rush hour, and it was awful.
Yeah.
It was awful. I mean, I planned for it, and everything was fine. He's back in California. Hey, Pix, if you're
you're probably one of those guys going 85 miles an hour, right?
100%. Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
Well, you got a truck. I got a little sardine can,
Actually, I drive a little sardine can, but it's a Tesla, so it's a rocket ship. So I'm just...
No, wait a minute.
With one...
What's my car? Did you notice what my car is?
Looked like a Prius?
Yeah, Prius. Yeah. I get Prius and Tesla mixed up, but they're very different things, right?
Prius is a hybrid. And Tesla's all electric. Like, I have no gas ever.
Really?
It's just 100% electric. I plug it in at my house.
I saw you have it plugged in, yeah.
And if I'm doing a road trip, I have to stop and charge for 20 to 30 minutes
that's not a real car,
gas. Well, it passes by you a lot realer than you pass by me, I'll tell you that. That thing's fast enough to be a real car.
If you're a purist.
I'm not. That's why.
I mean, come on.
The difference is I don't argue with the purists. I respect them. I love muscle cars. I'm a huge fan. I mean, the 66 Mustang is one of my favorite cars. I'm a huge fan of the Impala SS. Dodge Darts are up there on my favorite. I love a Chevy Nova. Like, I have full respect for them. I just also am aware that parts in the 60s and 70s are not as good as they are today. They didn't have disc brakes. They didn't have anti-locks. They barely had airbags. Like, that part is where I'll argue all day long.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I don't
think anybody would argue with you on that. I mean, in those times, if you got 80,000 miles on a car, you were toward the end of its life.
Yeah, now we expect cars for 200,000.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was unheard of in those times, yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Rustomod?
On the what?
The Rustomod? Well, let me ask, do you know what a Rustomod is?
No.
Okay, so you obviously know what a restoration is. We have a 1966 car. We make it a 1966 car with 1966 parts, right?
Yeah.
Okay. A Rustomod is where it's like, on the outside, it looks like your car, like let's stick with the 66. It looks like the 66 Mustang, like the shell.
Yeah.
But under the hood, it's a new engine, like a 2023 engine with 2023 brakes and 2023 air conditioning.
Huh.
So it's hence Rusto for restoration and mod for modern.
Huh.
So that's where the word comes from, Rustomod. So it's taking the high performance modern day parts that, again, if we're arguing realistically, we know perform better than the 60s.
Sure.
But if you're me and you and a lot of other people, we want that 60s body line, that style, or whatever our model car that we prefer, 70s, whatever, 80s, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's a Rustomod.
It sounds like a good idea.
It's a very good idea.
Yeah.
They're very expensive. It's a complete top 1% luxury item, This
is why I haven't heard of it.
This is why I don't have one.
I'm not the market.
I'm not the market either. I just, if I win a lottery, I'd get a Rustomod.
Yeah, that wouldn't be first on my list even then. Even if I won that $1 billion California lottery, it wouldn't occur to me to get a Rustomod.
Well,
okay. Now it might. Enough. Now that I know that I know it exists.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a. I guess it was a phase that the car restoration industry went through years ago, where they were building these chassis that they would put on Volkswagen frames. Do you remember that time? I'm
missing that.
You could have like a, whatever sports car you wanted to look like a spaceship, except that it would only go 40 miles an hour, because it was a Volkswagen.
Okay, so full look, no power.
Yeah.
It's like my brother's Jeep.
Is that what that is?
He has a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Yeah.
And it is stunning. It looks mean, beautiful color, hand-stitched leather interior, but it's like this new eco 4-cylinder hybrid electric plug-in thing where you get gas and plug it in, and he's just like, he's going from a V8 Hemi Jeep Grand Cherokee to this 4-cylinder, and he's just like, man, you really notice a difference when you're getting on the highway entrance ramp and you floor it, and it just doesn't move the same.
That's what my Prius does.
That's what my Tesla doesn't do. You put you tap it with the big toe and you're going 85 miles. It's so fast.
Yeah.
It's too fast. it's too fast.
I'll trade you.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. I don't think I can.
Thought I'd throw that out there. You might have a weak moment.
No, I'm
I'd
weak,
like a
but
Prius.
not that weak. Yeah. Also, I tried to buy a Prius and I don't fit in them.
I could see that. Yeah, you're a big guy.
6'5" and long, all leg. When you go from gas to brake pedal, my knee rubs the steering wheel and actually becomes
that's not good.
But that's the story of almost every sedan there is. In fact, Tesla's one of maybe 3 cars that make a sedan I can fit in comfortably. Very few cars, Hence why my other car's a truck, but that's also because of my work.
Trucks are good for big people.
Yeah, I mean, I bought it for work. Really,
you working now?
More than
I'm trying. Did you get a job or something?
Oh man, just the podcast. It's my full time.
This is it, huh? Yeah. This is what brings in the big bucks.
It's bringing the medium sized bucks. Yeah. At one time, it was my only vehicle, and it was honestly. I look back at that time like, how did you go anywhere in Durham? Like trying to park that absurdly big truck and trying to like drive it around. Once I got used to having the truck just be for work and the car be for everything else, just whipping around downtown Raleigh or downtown Durham, so much easier in a vehicle a third the size.
Oh yeah. My son had a 60, I think it was a 64 Cadillac Coupe de Ville or Sedan de Ville.
That's a boat.
Yeah. And to this day, I can't figure out how he found a parking space in downtown Portland every night, but he did. It's
baffles me.
I think God watches out for you when you have a car like that.
I mean, somebody's. I don't know who. my my
The
aunt
car
Carol.
gods.
My aunt Carol. She. I'm not religious, but she was raised very religious, and she
Yeah.
would seriously but jokingly at the same time. Every time we were shopping somewhere looking for a parking spot, she'd go, St. Anthony, please find a parking spot for me," and we'd always find one every single time.
See, that doesn't add up because St. Anthony is the patron saint of lost causes. So,
Well, finding a parking spot is a lost cause sometimes.
but doesn't something have to be lost in order to be found?
Oh,
But you didn't technically lose it. You didn't find it yet.
I think
I bet you that's a different saint. I bet you maybe like Saint Bernadette or somebody like that. Maybe.
I'm pretty
Look it
sure
up.
we could just fight about religious interpretations for 27 consecutive thousand years and not agree.
Hey,
You got time?
Airtime is free, right? Tune in next week when we will.
We'll still be
discuss-
arguing about the
Well,
the saints.
next week we're gonna cover the religious aspects of building a modular home.
Oh
in
man,
the suburbs.
yeah. Oh, we're gonna have to skip that episode, I think, just for our own sanity.
I can see your tattoo this week, by the way.
Yeah, I figured the tank top
It's
was
just-
better. It's 180 degrees in the shade, so
Wow.
yeah.
I don't see St. Anthony on there though.
No, there won't be
it's-
much religious stuff. Just the religion of Marvel comics,
Yeah,
and scuba diving.
Whatever.
You
You still got another arm to go there. You know, you never.
No.
You might
Done.
see the light.
Done. Hurts too much.
2 legs,
Even with the numbing cream.
chest,
No. Stop.
neck to belly button.
Stop.
Job.
We'll get you some tattoos. I'll give you I'll give you Danielle's name. Give you her phone number.
See my hat?
Yeah.
I went to the dermatologist a couple weeks ago. Oh my God, she thinks she's a. You know those guys with the drill that dig up stuff on the street?
Yeah, like a jackhammer.
Yeah, jackhammer. She should do that. She'd be good at it.
What's a dermatologist? Is that a skin doctor?
Yeah, skin
Okay.
doctor. Yeah,
With like a moles or something.
too much time in the sun.
Too much time. You gotta wear sunscreen, everybody. It's
I
important.
know. I've been covering up for a long time,
Yeah.
but
But you probably didn't when you were 25.
yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Start now.
stop smoking too.
Stops. Yeah. Well, we
Yeah,
could definitely
that's-
agree on that. Smoking is terrible for you. I used to
Yeah.
smoke cigarettes in college, and that's one thing I'd do in a time machine for sure is go back and be like, dude, make dumb college decisions, but just no cigarettes. Like, what are you doing? Stop it.
Yeah.
It's not helping.
No.
No. So much
Well.
money. Oh my God.
I can't believe how cigarettes are like what $7-8 a pack now or more.
Oh, I don't know, actually. It's been that long. Last time I bought a pack, they were in the, I was in California, so they were much more expensive. They were like $12, $13 a pack. But that was
God.
10 years ago in California. I don't think I've bought a pack of cigarettes in the state of North Carolina. But it should be cheaper because of the taxes.
Oh, the taxes are most of it, I think.
Yeah, I'm just saying comparatively to California,
Oh, right.
the same
Are
pack.
taxes less here?
Yes. For the record, anybody listening, I don't know that for a fact. I just know that the California taxes are some of the highest in the country. So I assume that it is higher than North Carolina. But
The services are probably better there.
I can't
Maybe.
speak it. I can't speak intelligently on it. I just only thing I can say, I have anecdotal stuff, but that's not speaking intelligent. Like I have friends who live out there, and they're like, "It's a shit show. We would move if we could. We stay here for the weather, but almost everything else is terrible except for food and weather." And I'm like, "Well, food and weather is
That's kind of important.
very
right?
important."
Yeah.
But
You got to pay for it though.
right, and they in order to get the equivalent of what I've got here for what was it 175K when I bought it. Like
Really?
first of all, this size house on this much land doesn't exist
Yeah.
where they are in San Diego. And if this size house existed, the next house would be 14 inches away. That's how close they are.
Yeah.
And it's $3 million
Right.
without even
like with nothing special, with like regular
Yeah.
countertops and no upgrade. Like it's
Yeah.
just a completely different spectrum of real estate comparison. Like my buddy Ernie, shout out Ernie Smith. He was just texting me some like general advice. He was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm just kind of ballparking. Like, what'd you pay for a well? What'd you pay to get your power run and blah blah?" And I was like, "Well, power's by the foot, so I can tell you what I paid, but you know, I don't know how far you're." And he was like, I'm just trying to get smarter." And I was like, "Well, you know, it was this much and it was this much. And if I were you, I would take both of those numbers and I would just double them to compensate for West Coast pricing."
Yeah.
And he was like, "That's probably a good idea because just, you know, the
Oh, yeah.
labor costs more. Everything just costs more out there."
Yeah. It works for whoever's still there. And
I
there's a
mean,
lot of people there.
It's slammed. Yeah, it's packed. It's packed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Must be great.
I mean,
I've been there.
I've been there pretty recently. I was out there this past March visiting him, and I don't see the appeal. But I don't surf.
Ooh, surf.
So that's a huge thing. I lived in a surf town in California before
Yeah.
I moved here, and it was the main thing where I was like, okay, if I don't surf, what am I really doing here? Like, I don't enjoy sitting on the sandy beach. I'm a scuba diver. I want to be under it. I don't want to be on the beach. So if you don't want to sit on the beach and you don't want to surf, what am I doing in this surf town? Just paying a lot of money to live in a surf town with good weather.
How can they afford to live in a surf town with it? Because my understanding is surfers, that's all they do is just surf. They don't like work or anything.
So that's a stereotype from cinema,
Yeah.
but not a reality.
Okay.
Yeah, a reality is like people who work every walk of life get up at 4 a.m. and surf from 4 to 8 and then go to their 9 to 5 job.
Really?
Yeah, and in fact, that was a contractor boss of mine. He had his wetsuit and short surfboard in the truck bed on to the right of his tools.
Huh.
And he would like hit the surf 4 or 5 a.m., do a couple hours, and then we'd meet at the job site 9 or 10 a.m. and work all day.
See, if I had to live my life over again, that's what I would do.
I mean, I don't have I don't have the balance to ever be a surfer, but I get the appeal. I mean, everybody who talks about surfing talks about the serenity of the wave, the feel of the ocean, the peacefulness, the like how hard it is and the accomplishment of eventually getting there. Like it all sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And except
I've been watching some videos of it, and it is amazing watching a surfer catch a wave. Wow.
Yeah.
You have to be in good shape to do that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there aren't a lot of fat surfers. You have to be athletic.
And they go so fast. How fast do they go? Do you know? When you catch a wave, they look like they're going like 100 miles an hour.
I don't know. I'm gonna guess 10 to 12 miles an hour.
No, faster than that.
I think it looks fast because they're going against a moving wave.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
don't, you know, I don't. There's no propeller, so I don't know if they could be
But
going.
it's the
30
ocean,
miles an hour.
you know.
I don't know. We'll have to look it up after the podcast.
Let's look it up.
I'm curious.
If you're listening and you know the answer to that, call
CRS Contracting and let me know.
Yeah, and
Call
order
in.
some lumber or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Hire me to do a carport and
There you go.
let me know. Yeah.
And let them know how
yeah.
fast surfers can
If
go.
you report the correct miles per hour, I'll know
get-
you're a listener and I'll give you 5% off.
Wow.
There you go. But there are no listeners, so no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
To you 5 faithful, I love you.
We're doing it for ourselves.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we're doing it for fun.
By the way, for those who can't see because there's no video, Ed is wearing not only the Yankee hat,
Yeah.
but
red,
red, which I love.
Ever seen one of these?
I have, actually.
You have?
Believe it or not, I own one because my parents thought it was orange, which is my favorite color, but it was dark when they bought it, and they were like, "Here's the orange Yankee hat," and then it was light, and I was like, "This is red."
Really?
But it's because orange is my favorite color. And he's wearing big number 99, Aaron Judge jersey, who, for those who don't care, which is probably all of you, we're big Yankee fans, and Judge is back from his injured time.
Yep. And he's
is-
walking like a walking guy.
He's walking like somebody with a hurt foot. So he's walking.
Yeah.
He doesn't look 100%,
That's
but he's
the
back.
that's the one thing two things we have in common. We both have 99 jerseys and sore feet.
That's all three of us. I got 2 foot surgeries.
Other than
and
that-
I got a 99 as well.
Really?
So
Wow.
let's do it.
It's a club.
Yeah, we should call him up.
Yeah.
The three of us. We'll take a picture.
Let's
and
go
just
have
a
a-
caption. What do we all have in common?
Yeah.
See who guesses
We
it.
could go to one of those bourbon festivals and
Oh yeah.
raise a glass
Shout out to the
to the dynasty.
to the Cary Coca Booth Amphitheater and the Beer, Bourbon, and Barbecue Festival. I was
But
just
not
at
so
that.
much barbecue anymore.
You know, as I told you off air, I went years ago. Everything was included.
Yeah.
You paid an absurd
Let's
amount of
keep it
money.
positive here.
I know. I'm just informing. You know, everything was free. Here's a sample of barbecue. Here's a sample of mac and cheese. Here's all the beers, the bourbons, whatever. This year, all the alcohol's included, and all the barbecue is not, and it's overpriced, and it was just slightly false advertising. It should change it to the beer and bourbon fest. And oh, by the way, we have food trucks. That would have been
Yeah.
more appropriate
Yeah.
advertising. But
yeah. But we
still
drank,
a great time. Good
we
live
drank
music.
ourselves silly and we're happy.
First hangover in 10 years. Woohoo! That shows you how little I drink.
Ah,
Oh. So last time you came, we got all the way to the end when you decided to let me know that, in fact, you have worked every construction job there is in your past. And we deemed it worthy of another episode,
a whole episode
a whole episode.
of my career and
But
whatever.
before we dive into that, I'm
Yeah.
actually more interested in asking you, what's the progress on the Chapel Hill cartoon map project?
it's day to day. One day I'm thinking, oh man, this is never going to work. And then the next day I get a couple of emails out of nowhere and people say, I want to sign up. So we've got about 20, 25 people signed up.
Okay, that's not bad.
We're about a quarter of the way there.
So 100's a magic number?
Yeah,
80 to
about
100?
100. I think we're going to go way over it. It tends to, like, it reaches a critical point where all of a sudden it's like everybody says, oh my God, I got to get on this.
It steamrolls towards the end.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really does. And so I'm hoping I have the energy to deal with that when it happens. I hope it does happen. But yeah, it's going a little slow. I didn't realize that summer is the slow season in Chapel Hill. I should have realized that.
Yeah, well, Chapel Hill is, at least that Franklin Street zone, is like pretty supported by the student population that's now on summer
That makes
break.
sense, right?
Yeah.
I never thought of it. I figured, Chapel Hill. It's
Yeah,
like a
I mean, there
boom
is
town.
summer classes, but still the population of students is drastically lower. So
Yeah.
come, what is it, September, everything should explode
Well,
back in.
mid August
Or
is
mid-
what I'm
okay,
hearing.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's one of the things that makes the project interesting. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, putting the whole thing together, waiting for that critical mass to show up, and in the meantime, doing other things like promoting it,
Finding a
talking to
paper
people,
supplier.
going to places like that bar that I met you.
Yeah, Namu.
Yeah,
Love
that's
Namu.
going to be on again this week,
Oh, I'd say my calendar.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Oh, yeah.
I should have known. You're way more organized.
Well, I
than me.
live and die by my calendar because,
Ah.
a stranger calls me from an unknown number because my number's on the internet wanting something construction related. And I've got to immediately be like, text me your address so I can save you in my phone, and then open my calendar and be like, these are my free availabilities. Which one works for you? And then block them in so that I can show
Now,
up and
this is the
measure.
calendar on your phone.
It's synced to everything, but yeah. Yeah. It's it's the same calendar that is everywhere. It just looks like this. And as you can see,
Oh, my
this
God.
this week's pretty full. But yeah, Wednesday, Namu event.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
And then I've got a networking event every day this week, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, there's one at honestly, that would be a nice spot for you to go. The Monday and Tuesday one won't help you specifically for getting Chapel Hill businesses because it's one's in Cary and one's in Raleigh, but just the general networking vibe, which I find to be it's worth its time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I always meet at least somebody who's interesting to talk to.
Yeah.
And more often than not, somebody who is a good business connection.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and if nothing else, for an introvert like me, it's great to kind of just be social when I would normally be home.
Wait a minute here. You're an introvert?
Yeah, podcasting's my natural vibe. I can relax a little bit when it's a one-on-one situation, but
Really?
when I'm in a large group, I tend to get quiet,
Really?
and it takes me a little bit to get
I
out
thought
of my
you were
shell.
the opposite.
No. When you saw me, I was kind of relaxed, and there were only 8 of us, so it was easy. But to each their own. But they're fun, and Namu specifically is a great restaurant. So like, even if the networking event wasn't great, which it was for the record,
Yeah.
get some good food and enjoy a nice new place.
Yeah.
It's a nice spot. But yeah, off air or afterwards, if you want the info on the other networking events, I can happily give them to you.
Yeah.
They're free. Go get a beer or not, whatever, and just start meeting people.
Well, you could just like spend your whole life going to these events,
Yeah, it seems to be that most of them are monthly, and most of them have picked a day in the first week of the month. So the first week of the month, it's like, I got one Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then there won't be one for the rest of the time frame. Sorry, we're getting the outro music. I forgot to mute, so no big deal. So yeah, but it seems to be they recur the first week of the month, and then like the Namu one is every first Wednesday.
Is that right?
Or every second Wednesday, and we just happen to start the month on a Thursday or whatever. But it's like, yeah, it's recurring. Yeah. But anybody, or you or anybody for that matter, you just follow the Facebook groups. That one's what, Rockstar Connect.
Yeah.
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 No, it was very easy to find.
Yeah. They
And
send me emails.
Deb came on the podcast.
She did?
Yeah, Deborah's the one who was like the coordinator, the leader or whatever.
Yeah. I'd like to talk to her more because she has a background in the newspaper business, which I find it, I was in that myself for a while.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you meet so many interesting people,
Yeah, I mean, I've had you on from that event, her on from that event, and I've already had a coffee meeting with Tom, and we might even be working together. Tom Buchanan, who was like the thinner guy on the other side of the table. But, it's just like, hey, what are you doing? Want to get a coffee? We got a coffee. And we're like, oh, well, maybe we could work together. Like, it is literally the quintessential, how to network. There you go. You never know.
Yeah. That guy that is it Jen?
Yeah.
The guy that we were talking to was sitting next to you, I think.
Yeah, the guy who likes the German swords. It was a big history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, was he interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting guy. Yeah.
But that kind of goes to the point almost, is like, where else would you go to an event where everybody is relaxed, everybody wants to be there, and you meet an investor, a realtor, a cartoonist, a woman who works for a SaaS company, a German sword enthusiast, a general contractor. Like, it's...
Yeah.
And those aren't even like that unique, but imagine if there were 18 people instead of 8 or 28 people.
Yeah.
And and then Tom ends up also being into German swords, and the two of them are like, oh my God, they're talking about different hilts and stuff, and I'm lost, but it's incredible to see just some passion sparking, even if you're adjacent to it.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Well, one of the things, maybe the biggest thing I found interesting about that guy, whose name I don't remember, but
I don't either, unfortunately,
was he was saying how much liquor he could hold. And he wasn't bragging about it, but he was just saying it as a factual thing, that he could just drink and drink and drink and just keep drinking. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting.
I missed that, and I wonder why. Maybe it's like a genetic thing that alcohol affects.
Well, he
him
was a pretty
differently.
big guy too. And some people are just like that. I'm not like that at all. I could like sniff a whatever and just be falling on the floor drunk, you know.
You look at me and you assume I can handle because of my size.
Yeah.
2 beers and I'm like, whew.
Yeah. I was
need a
surprised
break.
with him because he seemed kind of like a geeky guy who like would never even touch alcohol, but he told a story about drinking and it was like, wow.
Well, he's into German swords. Maybe he's into German beer.
It could be
Maybe.
something like that.
Schnapps.
Yeah.
That's German.
Or he could have been just lying.
Maybe he was trying to impress. Who knows?
Maybe he was.
You never know.
Yeah.
It's impossible. No.
I've never heard of that happening, but I would say it's possible.
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
No. What do you think, listeners? Possible?
Yeah,
Yes? No?
I think
We're
it
taking
is.
a live poll.
What are we talking about anyway?
I don't
Oh,
know.
impressing people.
Impressing people. Talking about that guy whose name we can't remember. It must be riveting for a listener right now. Talking about that guy.
I'm sure your girlfriend has his number in her file.
I hope so. She took down everybody's notes. Okay, bringing it back full circle here.
Oh, here we go.
Give me the youngest you can remember first construction job you can remember.
Oh my God.
What were you doing?
Well, we have to start at the beginning.
Okay, take me
Little
back.
background, which is important. I've been thinking about this week. Believe it or not, I don't just walk in here not thinking about anything.
I assume that you do no prep, but I am honored that you have really been thinking about it because I don't.
I can't help myself. I just think about it.
We're also
take a lot
blessed
of
by the studio
showers.
dog today, Willie Bear.
Okay, now you know I grew up in New York City.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the 50s and 60s, which I think arguably is the most, the time in history, I think, that it was the biggest building boom in history because it was the peak of the generation that I'm in, which is the baby boom generation. And I remember from an early age in Manhattan, where I grew up, we lived in like 6-story walk-up buildings, brick buildings. And I remember thinking, it was my impression that the only time you moved was when they tore down your building.
Oh, okay.
Because building demolition was a common thing because all the 6-story buildings were coming down and all the 40-story office buildings were going up. That was what the city was at that time. In addition to that, we lived on 3rd Avenue when I was very young. And I remember when they tore down the 3rd Avenue L, which was a big deal, which was, for those of you not familiar, was the elevated subway on 3rd Avenue, which was a historic thing. And it was 1955 when they tore it down. I was a little kid, and it was a great playground for me being out on 3rd Avenue with all the steamrollers and they were putting, before that, all of the electrical wires were on poles. And that was when they put it underground because they tore down the elevated subway. They tore up the cobblestone street, which was still cobblestone at that time. And they paved it smooth like modern asphalt. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, asphalt. I think.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what they did. And it was a lot of fun being out there. That said, okay, I remember, of course, when you're that age, every day when you grow up, you want to be something different. And I remember a period where I wanted to be a demolition worker because that looked like the most fun job in the world. I would see these guys up there swinging their what are those, sledgehammers. I don't think they do it like that anymore.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah. Now it's,
Maybe out in the country. But I thought, wow, that's what I want to do. That said, I don't remember ever touching a hammer until I was an adult. Or a saw or a screwdriver, any of those things. I don't remember touching any of those things until I was an adult living in a relatively rural area. Because growing up in the city, that just wasn't part of living.
If you're in an apartment building, you don't have a garden shed full of tools.
Yeah.
It's a suburb thing.
Yeah, we didn't have tools.
Yeah.
So that was my preparation for getting into the construction business.
You called the building super, right? Isn't that the name? If like you,
I don't even remember doing that.
Or something.
I mean, I don't think things broke as much. I think they had settled. Like everything that was going to break had already broken by that point. I mean, you were just used to it. Well, that's the way it works. So I don't remember ever calling the super for anything. He might have showed up, and I don't know. I don't remember any super. We did have them, but I don't remember who they were. But we never really fixed anything. We never repaired anything. We never built anything. So I had absolutely no experience with building. Totally the opposite of your experience, right? You grew up when your father was in construction, your mother was in related fields. None of that. It was like when I was an adult and I moved to a little town out in the country in Pennsylvania, I was like, what the heck is this? So let me think about this.
What age are you when you move to Pennsylvania?
I was 23. I moved to Pennsylvania my 23rd birthday.
So you're still, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that you're still a kid. If you were college years, you're out of college a year.
Well, I think I had by that time a little bit more experience than most college kids.
Do you think that's attributed to the time in history or attributed to your particular life path?
It was my particular upbringing and experience. I just got kind of thrown out on the street at an early age and figured things out as best I could. So it was, and that was different than most people, like go to high school, go to college, get a job, that kind of thing. I didn't do a lot of that stuff. So by the time I hit Pennsylvania at age 23, I'd been traveled a little bit. I'd had some experiences with different things, not construction, but other things. And so I felt, and in a way I kind of still feel that to this day, and this is 50 years later, I feel like I've had experiences that a lot of people don't have, but that's aside from the point that we're getting at, which is the construction business, right? So what I've been thinking about this week is there was, I think this started in the early mid-'60s with Lyndon Johnson. It was, you might have, I don't know if you heard about this, there was a federal program called CETA, CETA.
It rings a bell, but my knowledge on it is zero.
Well, it was a idealistic new Great Society. That's what Lyndon Johnson's administration was, the Great Society. And CETA was an acronym for Comprehensive Employment Training Act.
Okay.
And so the idea was to take guys like me who were young and full of energy and totally pretty much unemployable because we had no skills, and give us some skills that we could get into a market where we could actually make a living and pay taxes and be respectable citizens, right? So at some point, somebody thought it would be a good idea to take these guys, young guys like me, and make carpenters out of them, which that was pretty ambitious on their part, but not exactly a good fit, because in order to be a carpenter, you have to like know how to use a hammer, right, and a saw, and measure things and stuff like that, which I didn't have any experience in any of that stuff. But so I think actually, despite the name Comprehensive Employment Training Act, I think somewhere in that bureaucracy, somebody knew that, we're not going to train these guys to do anything, but we're going to keep them off the streets for a few months, and maybe something will click somewhere. And with the very least, they'll be getting a paycheck, and they won't be holding up people at night, And so that from that perspective, it succeeded. I didn't get involved in any criminal activity, which I've never been arrested, which is an accomplishment for anybody, I think, So, no, I was not a criminal, but I think the basic idea of CETA in those times, I don't know, from my perspective, those were hard times. It was hard to get a job. Like today, I think I could walk into any place in Chapel Hill and get a job as a short order cook or whatever. It wasn't like that in those days. The jobs were hard to come by. Maybe it was just me because they saw me coming in the door and they said, no, I don't think so. But so anyway, I got hooked up with CETA, and they were going to make a carpenter out of me and a bunch of other guys. And so I said, well, whatever, it's a job, show up every day and they give you a paycheck every week or two, and that's good. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about CETA was, it was a federal program, but it was run by the local officials, like the county government administered it.
Right.
So you'd show up to the courthouse every day, and you were part of a CETA crew, and they'd send you out in different places in the county. Now, Wayne County, which is where Honesdale was a pretty big county. To drive from one end of Wayne County to the other probably would take a couple hours. If you had a Prius. We didn't have a Prius. We had an old leftover, what they call a deuce and a half.
Yeah.
From World War II days, right? Big old army truck. And they gave us this army truck to drag around our
old diesel, I bet.
I don't know what I didn't pay. That was another shortcoming to my education. I knew nothing about cars or trucks because you didn't need one in the city. So I think I had probably just gotten my driver's license, or maybe I didn't even have one yet. I don't know. But we got this deuce and a half, which Wayne County is very hilly. And a deuce and a half, it had like, how many gears is it possible to put in a truck? It's like a lot of them, right? Like 20, 30, 40. I don't know. It's a lot of gears. And if you don't know, if you barely know how to drive, this is like, wow. But it's not that hard. It's not that, somehow, I remember, I haven't driven one since then, but it's not that hard to drive a truck with 20 or 30 gears, and it's not that much harder than driving a regular standard transmission somehow. You go through all the gears pretty fast, right? But you have to start at a low gear, because going up a hill, and this deuce and a half is a 2.5 ton truck, it's heavy, and it goes slow, and it had to go in a low gear to begin with, right? So if you're going from one end of Wayne County in your Prius in 2 hours, say, to do the same thing on a deuce and a half could take 4 or 5 hours, right? Because you're going very slowly up one hill and then down the other. When you go down, you can go pretty good. So this is, I'm a pretty careful person, despite everything. And I see this in my son. He's the same as me. He does a lot of crazy stuff, but he has a line that he'll go up to, and he won't go over that line. He's very careful. But this one time, I went over the line, and I'm not proud of it. And it was a stupid thing to do. But what I did was, for some reason, they let me drive the truck this one day, right? So here I am, 20-something years old. I'm driving this deuce and a half, feeling like a G.I. Joe, And we're going through Wayne County. We're going to this job. And go very slow to the top of the hill. We get up to the top of the hill, and there's another hill going down, right? So I'm looking. We get to the top of the hill, and we've been going like maybe 10 or 15 miles an hour up the hill. So we want to make up time going down the other side, right? So I look across, it's like a valley, and the downhill is maybe a quarter of a mile to the bottom, and then there's another uphill, right? So you want to make a little bit of time going down that hill, right? So I look down, and I'm planning in my head, we're going to make some time on this. And I look across the valley, and there on the other hill, up on top of the other hill, is a big old tractor trailer semi truck. And the guy who's driving that truck, he's thinking the same thing that I'm thinking, which is he wants to make time coming down the hill because he sees the other hill coming up to where I am, right? So this is clear in my head. I hope I'm explaining it so that it's clear to whoever's listening, which is you. At the bottom of this hill, there's a little 2-lane bridge going over a little stream, right? And it's 2-lane. Maybe if you have two Priuses, right?
Car lanes, not
two car
not
lanes.
A semi and a
not a
two and
semi
half
and a
deuce.
deuce and a half.
Yeah,
No.
no way.
So we got these two guys.
Playing chicken.
That's what it came down to. I said, I don't remember how many other guys were in the cab with me, but there were a bunch of other guys in the back of the deuce and a half with our equipment. And I think I said, I looked over and I said, watch this. And I took my foot and put it on the gas and put it in whatever gear was necessary to give it optimal drive. And I started down the hill as fast as that deuce and a half could go. And the guy in the semi did the same thing. And we just, both of us came down that hill as fast as we could go because we were both making time. We were both headed to that bridge. And sure enough, we both hit the bridge at the same time. And I never saw the guy because we passed pretty quick on that bridge, that 2-lane bridge, and then started up the other side. We both made it through there. There was, I don't know how many inches between us, but neither one of us hit anything. But we were off to the next job.
So what kind of jobs, or what were you doing? Were you framing?
Well,
because you said carpenter.
Yeah. I was mostly watching.
Okay.
We had a few guys. We had maybe 8 or 10 guys on the crew, okay? A few of them were young guys like me who had no experience in any of this.
Okay, so you had some real dudes who were like probably hired
not
from this program. And an actual
I wouldn't call
carpenter.
them like professional carpenters, but they were guys who like grew up in the country and knew how to use a hammer and measure and all that stuff.
So by comparison, they were more,
right.
But
yeah,
we're not talking like pro.
You talking guys who like were maybe in their 40s and
good old boys who were really handy.
Yeah, they would like work for a few hours and then have a couple of beers.
So you're mostly watching who you perceive to be the more talented
Right,
workers,
yeah.
trying to just like pick up on the
Right.
how to, the skill,
Yeah.
which, you know, should I mark it this way? Where should I put the tape measure?
Yeah.
How do I hold
Yeah.
the hammer correctly?
Right. Yeah.
The little things.
Yeah. And what we were building, it was very specific building projects. We were going around the county, and they had little county parks, and we were building these little sheds. They were like picnic sheds.
Yeah. Storage.
Now, I don't know what the logic is of having a picnic shed, but I guess there's some logic to it, because we were going around and we go to these parks. I guess if you're going to a picnic and it starts to rain, you could go under the shed, right?
Are you talking like a lockable shed that you would store your garden tools, or like a pavilion with like 6 picnic tables under it?
Yeah.
Okay.
They weren't that big, though. You could fit maybe 1 or 2 picnic tables
yeah.
under it. So you'd have these, I didn't know any of these terms or any of this stuff, but they're probably like 6x6s, like on the corners, and maybe a couple in the middle, and then across the top.
Was the roof like a single shed roof, or did it look like this?
Yeah, it was like a V.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was
Very
a normal
standard.
Yeah, very standard.
Yeah.
So we go around, and
it actually makes a lot of sense that a park would have that, because it's just like a good communal spot. Hey, we're meeting at the pavilion at Johnson Park for Kimmy's birthday.
Yeah.
Just like that's, so that's also like from a construction perspective, very cheap. Very easy.
Yeah.
Almost no maintenance. You need a new roof every 30 years.
Yeah.
Like that's a really good way to do some community improvement without just lighting tax money on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They weren't paying us that much, just enough to eat and pay the rent.
I mean, if that was happening today, that's a professional crew on tax dollars. And I'm thinking that's still an okay project, because they're not that expensive, and it's a good public thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guys who were on the crew who did have some experience knew enough to be able to build these things pretty well. They were solid little things. And we went around the county building these things. And I was just like, I don't even remember many.
The same structure over and over.
Yeah, same one.
Okay.
We had one set of plans. We'd build the same structure, and like the township supervisors would call the county and say, "Hey, send that crew out here. We want one of those." And, they're pretty solid. And they probably had me like digging the holes, post hole digger.
Yeah. Little cement.
Post hole digger. That wasn't that hard to learn.
That needs no learning. That's
just
sweat.
Just muscle.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't even, you just sweat.
Even if you're like 140 pounds of muscle, like me.
It could be 140 pounds of no muscle. You can slam that thing in the earth and widen it
and
make
and next thing you know, you got some guy mixing mud and throwing a 6x6 in there, and then framing a roof on there. That's probably where I learned to do roofing. Or is that how you say it? Roofing? That's the way you say it in New York City. You say roofing.
Yeah,
but
roofing. Or roofing.
In rural Pennsylvania, they say roofing.
Roofing. Yeah.
Roofing.
Yeah.
Which I never got the hang of that. But
so were you doing, I'm assuming, shingles on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Standard shingles on there. And so we finished it up and go to the next one. So we did that for a few months, and then inevitably.
So in one event, you got to learn how hard digging a hole is. Learn that it sucks when you hit a rock bigger than the hole, bigger than the post hole digger.
Yeah. It was a learning experience.
You got to learn how to put a post plumb and scab it with some scrap wood. And you got to learn the consistency of concrete. Even if you didn't know you were learning this, you probably.
Oh yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know I was learning anything.
But I'm sure you noticed, like, oh, that concrete's a little too wet. It's very soupy. That concrete needs more water.
Yeah.
And the subtle differences.
Yeah.
And then
when you start out knowing nothing, it's all a big revelation. Yeah. It's like, wow, look at that.
Yeah. It's when you've never laid brick for a foundation. It's incredibly interesting. And then you do it for one day and you realize it's the worst job ever. It's just shoveling and mixing stuff and in the hot sun and unlevel ground and annoying issues. Like, it's not.
See, I thought it was magic.
It's magic for you. It's magic from afar. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
It's
magic.
true.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's the same revelation you had when you saw those dudes demolishing buildings in New York City.
Yeah.
If you spent a day swinging a sledgehammer
Oh, my
and
God.
went home
Yeah.
and looked
You'd
at
be
your
tired.
blistered hands
Yeah.
and your forearms were on fire, and then
Yeah.
the next day you had to go do it and you couldn't lift your shoulder,
Yeah.
it would cease to be magical
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
You'd say, maybe I should become a cartoonist instead.
Yeah, or where's the diesel powered bulldozer? Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd quickly think this was
Yeah.
not
I also learned how to drive a deuce and a half.
Yeah, see? So that's
Yeah.
like 8 really interesting life skills.
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
what if there's a
That-
zombie apocalypse tomorrow and the only vehicle is a deuce and a half? I don't know how to drive that.
Hey,
You
I'm
do.
on it.
Let's do it. We'll raid donut shops together.
It's like riding a bike. You never forget how to do
Yeah.
it, Yeah. But I probably wouldn't race that guy to the bottom of the hill again.
well, that comes with knowledge, wisdom, and experience.
Yeah, you
which
go.
You got at that
Inevitably.
moment, too.
Yeah. I was getting so smart so fast that I was ready for the
Sponge.
next phase. So they had all these picnic sheds all over the county. And inevitably in Northeast Pennsylvania, winter comes. And so they have these 8 or 10 guys. And they say, what are we going to do with them now? They still don't have enough skills to go out and get a job. So what they had us do was, this is brilliant. Who says the government can't be brilliant?
Most people. But continue.
Let's find an indoor spot for these guys and have them building picnic tables.
That it for the picnic shed. Why not?
For the picnic sheds, right?
Very smart.
Brilliant. Another lesson learned, planning ahead. What are we going to do with these guys? So there was...
I want to ask, what was the end? Not that you got there or didn't get there, but was the end goal to have you be skilled enough to go work for a general contractor and be a full-time carpenter on a carpentry crew?
I think...
Was that the goal of the program?
Well...
Or was it secretly just how do we get people off the streets?
The most idealistic vision of it was that, to get these guys to be all master carpenters.
And go work for
Yeah.
John Building Company.
Yeah,
Right.
that was the overall most optimistic outcome.
Okay.
But realistically, it was basically giving us a paycheck every week or two, and so that we could survive another season or whatever. That was realistic, and from that perspective, it worked.
So back to picnic tables, you're now, we're not going to call it trim carpentry, but this is not framing. This is a little bit more, it has to be a little bit more precise. You're doing some sanding, maybe some.
All right, this is. We're going to get into that. We'll get into the fine points of building a picnic table here. I've been thinking about.
Because now you can
too.
go buy a $240 one at Home Depot. That all you got to do is slap it together with the bolts they provide. The world has changed.
It's not the same as this isn't the same as the picnic tables we built.
No, they're not.
No, we built these were like the deuce and a half trucks of the picnic table industry. So okay, this is all right. This is even before my time. When a person or a family came upon hard times, they didn't have welfare, they didn't have food stamps, they didn't have Section 8 housing. They had what they called the poor farm. You ever heard of that?
I have not.
There was a building in Honesdale, in the Honesdale area, Wayne County. There was a building out maybe 4 or 5 miles outside of town, where poor people would be sent to grow crops for them to eat, and they would live there. And I think it was called a poor farm. And if you were poor family, you'd go and you'd live there and you'd grow crops there, and that's how you ate. That's how you survived. Now, that was probably during the Depression, which is in the 1930s, okay? So by the time I came along in the 1970s, that era had already passed, but the building was still there, and there were a couple of outbuildings, and there was a farm, but it wasn't really being used for anything. So what they did was they sent us out there, and they set us up inside, and it was sort of like it wasn't as big as a gymnasium. It was like maybe the size of a large classroom. Okay.
And that was the wood shop, we'll call it.
The wood shop.
Yeah.
Good name for it.
Yeah.
So they sent us out there, and they gave us plans for a picnic table.
How many do you think you built?
Well, there were, on the crew, as I said, I think there were 8 or 10 of us, okay? There was a few guys like me who were young and had no idea what was going on. There were a few guys who were marginal and knew how to, hammer and nail and measure and all that stuff. And there was one guy, I even remember his name. His name is Larry Warwick. And I sometimes think about how he got on this crew, because he was kind of seemed like managerial material. Like every day he wore like a uniform, like a green, sort of a supervisor's uniform, even a hat.
Was he the crew's supervisor?
He sort of got into that position because he was the only one who really didn't look like he belonged on such a motley crew. He was respectable. He had a family. He wasn't an alcoholic. He wasn't a know-nothing street kid. He was a regular guy who had some knowledge, and he'd probably had some some professional experience with managing people. Maybe he was the manager of a wood shop or something like that. And I sometimes wonder how he got on that. Maybe if they picked him because he was like that, or if he was just out of work and just landed up there. I don't know. But anyway, he sort of evolved into the project manager, as it were, right? And so we had, everybody was separated into different groups, like 2 or 3 guys. Over in this corner, you'd have guys cutting the wood. Then over there, you'd have guys measuring the wood. And then over here, you'd have guys nailing it together. And then over here, you'd have guys doing something else. But and Larry, the supervisor, organized this. He had these plans. He had one set of plans, and he said, "Okay, you guys are going to do that, and you guys are going to do this," and it was very well organized. And the first thing we had to do was get the wood to build the picnic tables, right? So we were out in the country, and a couple of miles down the road, there was a wood, what do you call it? A lumber mill.
Sawmill. Yep.
Sawmill. So we go, okay, that's local material. And that was part of the genius of this federal project, is they all, they put money into the community. They go to this guy in the sawmill who years later, I think his kid was in my Boy Scout troop. So anyway, I digress. So they went down to this guy and they say, okay, we need some lumber to build these picnic tables, right? So the guy, no problem. And I still don't know that much about the lumber business, but when you go to a lumber yard, like you buy 2x4s, right? Now, is it the same today? At that time, if you buy a 2x4 from, say, a Home Depot, it's like 1 3/4 by 3 3/4, right?
Now it's 1.5 by 3.5.
Okay, it's a little smaller.
Yeah, so lumber has progressively shrunk, and then also the rings of the growth. Like when you look at the end of a board, you can see the rings, which are like retrospective of the rings inside the whole tree. The more rings, the older the tree. And so, like, because of the rapid expansion, not just in America, but of just Earth, and how much more people they are and how much more buildings are going up, the material can't be made quick enough. So there are entire forests that are planted just to be harvested into crappy pine 2x4s, and the trees are much younger. Therefore, the rings are not as tight. Therefore, the wood is not as strong. And so, like, you know, for me personally, I've seen in my hands the difference because I've gutted a 110-year-old building and ripped out a 2x4.
Yeah.
And it's actually 2 by actually 4.
Yeah.
And you look at the end, and there's 80 rings in that 2-inch by 4-inch thing. And then I go buy a modern 2x4, and it's 1.5 by 3.5, and there's 25 rings.
Yeah.
Which just means it's just less dense, less hard, much easier to burn, and much easier to just snap. It's just weaker. And there is no way to recreate that without simply letting a tree become a 100-year-old tree before you take it down. There's no way to recreate it in the modern, like, wood way to, you know, short of the engineered stuff we buy, which is like LVLs, laminated veneer lumber. It's basically chips of wood and resins, epoxies, and glues in a super compressed mold that then when it's done, it looks like plywood, but it acts like a regular piece of wood. So you can get this like engineered beam that is really glue and sawdust at its raw form.
Right.
It's not a tree, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas you go look at a barn that's still standing from 100 years ago, and there's 5 posts, and the piece of wood that's resting on top of 5 posts still has bark. Like they just cut down a wide enough tree. It's just that tree is strong enough because of its natural age and hardness.
Right. Okay, so we went to this lumber yard or this sawmill. It was a sawmill, it wasn't a lumber yard. And we said to this guy, well, I didn't say it, whoever was doing the order, he said, we need 2x4s. We're building picnic tables, right? So he goes, yeah, we'll get you that in the morning. And so the next day, or whenever he had them done, which was pretty quick, we got 2x4s. Or 2x6s. Now the 2x4s weren't 1 3/4 by.
They were real 2x4.
They were maybe 2 1/8 by 4 1/2, or the next one could be 2 1/2 by 4 1/8, or maybe 1 7/8 by 3 9/16.
They were what we call rough cut. So they
were
not uniform.
They were not uniform. Yeah. In fact, they weren't even dry.
That's I already know where the story's going.
You know where the story.
I've been there.
This is absolutely true. As we were building the picnic tables, the 2x4s would be they'd be leaking.
Oh yeah.
They'd be the sap would be running out of these 2x4s or 2x6s, or maybe we were using 2x10s or something on top.
You need to let wood dry naturally for years.
No, we didn't have time to do that.
Or you need to, like, modern commercial sawmill, lumberyard, wherever you want to, like the people who supply Home Depot, they kiln it. They put it in a massive oven.
Yeah.
They bake
no,
the,
we
they
didn't.
bake the
no,
wood.
Yeah, we didn't have time for that. We didn't have an oven. We didn't have any of that stuff. So we got this raw, dripping 2x4, 2x6s, 2x10s from the sawmill up the road, and we had our little workshop set up, and Larry was
So how many did you pump out?
We ended up, I think, over the course of the next couple of months, we made about, I'm just guessing here, it might have been more, but at least 50 or 60 picnic tables.
Okay, and how many of them stayed straight enough and didn't warp because of the not dryness of the wood? Did they all hold up?
Yeah. What we did was we built these and we put them out on the out in the field. It was a big farm, basically. So we had them out on the field, and then I think it was in the spring we went out there, and on the bottom of them, we had these big drums filled with used oil from cars.
Was that your sealant, your protectant?
Yeah.
Painted it with oil?
Yep. We put this, and it was black. And so the legs of the picnic table and the legs of the chair or the benches, they were all black because of this oil. And then we put some kind of protective seal on the top of it, right? And so we were pumping these things out. Now, this being a federal program, they would have these federal inspectors coming every once in a while to make sure the program was working good, right? So this is a funny thing I was thinking about. We had this set up such a way, like you had the guys over there doing the cutting, and they would yell over to the guys over in the other corner, give me a ½ inch. And whatever that meant, the guys would cut a ½ inch off wherever, and then they would send them the lumber over to the other side. And then the guys say, give me 3/4 inch, and they'd do that. Or give me a 1/4 inch, whatever. So this operation was humming. So then when the federal inspectors came, we had it down so good that we could play loose with the numbers. So the inspectors would come into our little classroom there, and the guys in the corner would say, give me 3 seconds. And here we had this wet lumber that was like maybe within a ½ inch of where it was supposed to be. And we go, give me 3 seconds, and the guy over there would do whatever he was going to do, which wasn't 3 seconds.
Right.
But the federal inspectors are looking to say, wow, these guys are good.
Just putting on a little show.
Yeah. So anyway, we got all these picnic tables built and put them out and put this used oil on the bottom and some kind of sealant on the top. And then the next spring, we'd take them out and put them under all of our little picnic sheds that we built the summer before. And I had heard, I can't say that this is true or not, that these were the most popular picnic tables in the history of Pennsylvania state parks because they were so solid that a lot of people had the same thought after using these picnic tables. They thought, geez, this would look good in my backyard. And the picnic tables started disappearing. And
like people would just take them.
Yeah, they would
back
take
in
them
with a truck and just take the government picnic table because they weren't
attach
them.
No, they weren't chained down.
Right.
And so that's what I heard. I can't say that's true or not, but I would bet to this day, if you go around Northeast Pennsylvania, there's a lot of our picnic tables sitting back in people's backyards and just solid as a old deuce-and-a-half truck.
I mean, it wouldn't shock me because of the age in which the time frame in which you did this. Everybody knows that the lumber was better. So you had thicker, stronger lumber. I mean, for Pete's sake, you cured it with oil. I mean, good for the environment? No.
Yeah.
Gonna last a long time?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I mean, if you were a hoodlum in the countryside of Pennsylvania and all of a sudden your favorite park had a new pavilion and then a month later had a new picnic table, looks like a cool picnic table. We're going to take that. I'm not supporting that, but I get it. I get why they walked off. Nowadays you go anywhere, every outside chair at a restaurant is spray painted with the restaurant logo, and they all have a chain through the foot. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't trust anyone anywhere, unfortunately, with that kind of stuff. So, you know, in the 70s, everybody,
it's a free
they
for
weren't
all.
thinking about it.
No.
That nobody thought, oh, we need
Well,
to put
the
those
thing
in
is,
cement.
these picnic tables were so heavy.
Right. You need a crew to
You
steal
do.
it. You need a deuce and a half.
You would.
Yeah. So where do you go after picnic tables in the construction realm? Or is that the end? Was then you find cartooning?
No. I chronologically, I'm not sure, but I did have a little bit of experience as a roofer.
Okay.
You know,
Shingle or metal?
Shingle.
Okay.
And
that's a very repetitive, not as much fun as it looks business also.
Well, yeah, it was kind of fun for a while. And it was kind of dangerous as well.
Yeah,
because
how's your balance? Mine's terrible.
Oh gosh. No, I had pretty good balance. But in those days they didn't really. Today, if you're on the roof, you have to have like a harness on, right?
Yeah. Fall protection.
Yeah,
Yep.
We didn't have that.
No, they didn't care. Or they didn't know. Or they knew or they didn't care. Or all the above.
Yeah. Well, the guy that I worked for had his little roofing company. And I remember him bragging about how many broken bones he had. And he'd been doing it his whole life. And he was not a young guy. He'd been doing it for 30, 40 years. And he'd fallen off a lot of roofs in that time.
I mean, I go up on as many roofs that I can go up on when I send my roofer out to do something for my client. But I mean, I don't feel safe. And on the way down, I need someone to hold the ladder. Like, I should not be up there. You know, I don't have the balance. I don't have the feet.
Yeah, if you don't do it regularly, you don't get... Yeah. If you do it regularly, you get used to the height. But when you only do it once in a while, each trip up there is a little scary the first time.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, you see my guy Felix go up these ladders with such speed.
Yeah.
He's standing on an angle like he was born that way.
Right.
I'm like, we're just a different animal, you know?
You get used to it and you learn how to do it, but that can be a dangerous thing, which it turned out in my case to be the case.
Did you fall off a roof?
Well, not exactly, but...
Did you fall off a ladder?
No. What I did was this. We broke one of the cardinal rules of roofing, which is we put a ladder up on one end of the roof, and then they have these things that you attach to the ladder that go under the ladder where you can put a 2x12 maybe as a plank going across.
Yeah, to make a scaffold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on the other side, we didn't have a ladder. We had a dormer coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So
you just leaned it on the dormer on one side and the ladder on the other?
We had a ladder on one side of the roof and a dormer on the other side, right? Which was fine as long as you didn't step in the wrong place.
So it wasn't fine.
Well, okay, there was a guy on the dormer side.
I've got email. I just don't check it. That's what you just said.
Something like that. Yeah.
Shoot me an email. I've got email.
Yeah, the early version of that. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
So there was a guy on the dormer side, and he's standing on this plank, right? And he's basically we're doing the bottom level of the roof, right? The first row
first course of shingles.
Yeah. And he's there, and he's standing on the plank on this side, right? So I'm on the other side. I go up the ladder. Fine so far, right? Now, I'm going to do the very end, which the ladder's not quite at the end. It's maybe a couple of feet in. And so I think, well, there's a piece of the plank sticking out from the ladder toward the end of the roof. Now, if I stand on it, I can reach the end of the roof. And that's great because there's a guy on the other, and he's bigger than me and heavier than me, and he's standing there and he's working, and I'll be over here working and on the side of the ladder that's hanging over the edge, and I'm doing my job. And that worked fine. It worked fine until he decided for some reason
To step off the
to
plank.
step off the plank.
And you experienced an adult seesaw.
That's exactly what it was, like a seesaw. And I was on. Did you ever do that with your sister? Like get
I
off.
mean, we had a seesaw in middle school.
You get
or
off,
whatever.
and
Yeah.
the guy on the other takes a fall, right?
Yeah.
So, fortunately, it was probably maybe 12 or 15 feet, which doesn't sound like a lot, but
Yeah, it does.
when you're going down, it's like slow motion. It's like when you have a car accident. I'm going down, the guy steps off the plank on the other end, and all of a sudden the plank shifts, and the part that I'm standing on starts decelerating, as it were.
Yeah, you're wearing a tool belt and all this stuff.
I have big, heavy shoes on, though.
Yeah, boots.
But on the way down, I actually had time to think about what would be the best way to land here that I could do the least damage.
Roll.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And fortunately, it was a lawn. It was grass. It wasn't concrete or brick or anything like that. And so I figured, okay, I'm going to land on my toes and sort of throw myself, which is what I did, which minimized the damage, but I still was hobbling for a couple of days with my knees.
I could only
Yeah,
imagine.
my knees were damaged a little bit. So I had to take a few days off work, and then I don't remember the sequence, but at some point very soon after, I don't think I ever made it back to work. I got laid off because I think the boss thought anybody who's stupid enough to do what I did, I don't want him to go up on the roof anymore because that kid's going to get killed. So that was the end of that phase of my roofing career. But I did get to go on another roof. We have time to tell a story of my second roof. This was after I had established myself more as an artist. I had a friend who just passed away recently, and he was a very enterprising guy, and he bought the local hardware store, and he wanted me to paint the logo of the store on the side. They had like an outbuilding, which was, I think it was about 40 feet long. And he wanted me to paint a logo of the store, which was True Value, it was True Value Hardware. He wanted to paint the True Value Hardware on the side of the building, which was corrugated metal. So artistically, that was very challenging to do that because all the grooves would be going in and out and wavy. Anyway, I got that part of it done. And then the most challenging part of it was he wanted me on the roof, which was a metal roof. And it was a V-shaped roof, standard.
Yeah.
Each side was maybe 20 feet, I think. And it was 40 feet long. So it was 20 feet high by 40 feet long. And he wanted me to paint Murrays across the entire length of it. And so I wish I had saved the plans that I made. I charted it out and made it so that the letters would fit. And I did the logo first on the side. That worked out pretty good. And this roof, once again, from the bottom of the roof to the ground was maybe 12, 15 feet. Not that much, but unless you fall off of it, then it's a lot more.
That's a lot, yeah.
So I get up there, and first of all, it was kind of an old metal roof, and I had to put that silver paint that you use to coat it.
Yeah.
So I had to put a coat of silver paint. So as I was going along, I'd do some silver paint, and then I would start drawing in where the letters would be. And I had it all measured out very carefully. And then it was silver, and then the letters were going to be red, bright red. I don't know who was going to see this. I mean, the only person who could see this was somebody flying by in a low-flying airplane, which...
Hey, the customer wants it.
Hey, you don't ask questions. But, I mean, a
How
lot
far
of
did
that
you
kind
get?
of project comes from people in town saying, see what that guy's doing on the roof over there? Right? So I'm up there. And I was smart enough. I rigged up it was a kind of a homemade safety belt system where I had this rope and I like attached it to something on the ground on one side and then and I measured it enough so that if in the event I would start sliding off the roof, it would stop me right at the edge. So I wouldn't like hang myself, right? And it actually saved me a couple of times. A couple of times I actually did start sliding and I said, okay, let's see if this system works. And I would get to the bottom and stop,
Nice.
and then go back up to the top. So I had started and I'd been doing it for a couple of weeks. It was a big job. It was going to last for a couple of months, but Bob came over one day, said, Ed, come on down. We got to stop the project. I said, oh, man, what's going on? Somebody, and we knew who it was, called the sign ordinance guy to report us because we didn't have proper
permits.
Yeah, permits to be putting up this huge sign, right? Which we didn't even think about.
You had a Karen. It happens.
Well, the thing was, this is another aspect of this. The guy who called us and reported us, he owned the diner in town, and I think it was like a year before I had been doing another project on the wall next to the diner, and I had a scaffold set up, and it was taking up at least one or two of his parking spaces for the diner, and he was the kind of guy during lunch hour. Like when you go into a small town, and you're like driving through and you're hungry, where do you go? Oh, there's the diner. Oh, where do you park? Oh, they have a parking lot, right? He was insane about guarding his parking spaces. He would go out in the middle of lunch and like scream at people who were parking there who weren't eating at the diner. You can't park there. That's so. The fact that I was taking up one or two of his parking spaces for like weeks at a time it drove him insane. It really did. And I just remembered this the other, we had one confrontation where I ended up yelling at him and like calling him some really nasty names. And that just burned into his soul. And he kept it there until he saw me on the roof a year later. And he said, time for revenge.
Time for revenge.
So that ended that project. It never got finished. And it's too bad because I was looking forward to finishing it. It would have been pretty historic, I think. Probably would still be there, too.
And who knew realizing transform from roofing and painting to just painting. Move away from the roof and keep the art.
Yeah. I always try to keep my mantra, never take a job bigger than your drawing board.
It's not a bad.
It simplifies things considerably. Yeah. You
got to know your limits.
Well, if I drank too much red wine sitting at my drawing board, and I fell on the floor, that would be like no big deal. I'd get up and go back to the drawing board. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, can you remind everybody how to find the Chapel Hill cartoon map?
Yes. The most direct way to do it is to go to our website, which is chapelhillcartoonmap.com.
Okay. And once again, we're looking for Chapel Hill small businesses who want to be noted and drawn in on this awesome one-of-a-kind map and then receive copies of it to do whatever they want.
Yeah, it's a great deal. You could actually make money doing it. You don't actually have to be a local business either. Like we're going to have, spaces around the border where anybody can jump in and buy a spot. They're cheap, like
just
$125.
In Chapel Hill.
No, you don't even have to be in Chapel Hill. If you want to do business in Chapel Hill, the poster eventually, I think a big part of the market is going to be college students who will, have the poster and hang in their dorm room, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily have to be in Chapel Hill. It's kind of it's Chapel Hill businesses to some degree. I mean, the main focus of it is going to be on Franklin Street,
Yeah.
but then it's going to expand a little bit out there. And then around the border will be whoever wants to be there. You don't, if you're looking to have some exposure in and around the Chapel Hill area, even if you have a business that's in wherever,
Yeah, I'm thinking if you, especially a food truck, who might not have a brick and mortar, but can't go to Chapel Hill, might work Durham.
Yeah,
might
we
work
could even
Raleigh.
like draw a food truck with your name on the side of it.
It'd be
We have
awesome.
a moving company that's gonna they're gonna like have a space on the map, and it's gonna be like a truck with their name on the side, 2 men in a truck.
Yeah.
plug.
I've seen
And
seen
guys
trucks all
moving
over.
stuff, and then they're gonna have a little business card side on this with some information on it, so it's like a 2-for-1 deal.
I think that's I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So chapelhillcartoonmap.com.
ChapelHillCartoonMap.com. Contact Ed directly. Get involved.
Yeah. And if you Google Ed King cartoons, it's like my life history. It's like as if I'm famous,
Oh, you are famous.
It's all over the
You've
place.
you've been on the Orange Hammer podcast twice.
That's a record.
You are so famous.
I mean,
So I can't even look at you.
oh
Whoa.
my God.
Oh,
And we
man.
haven't even talked baseball yet.
Episode 3, we're brewing it.
There we
I
go.
guess. Yeah, episode 3 will just be baseball. I'll put it.
Really?
I'll put it in the thing. This is not construction related. Baseball fans come.
Well,
it should
it should be construction related.
Maybe
to
we'll talk
about the rebuilding of Yankee Stadium. How's that? What it was like in the old days.
or just baseball construction in general. I don't know. We could figure something out. We could talk about wood bats. I don't know. We'll do some research. We'll talk. Yeah. I like that though.
Research. There's a novel idea.
Yeah. Don't get too cocky now. As always, the Orange Hammer podcast is on Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, CRS Contracting as well. All of the above. Call me 845-489-6057. Email me Corb, C-O-R-B, at WSDG.com. If you need work, you want to come on the podcast, you want me to talk about something specific, all the above. Studio dog Willie Bear says, let me out. And Ed, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
We'll do a third one soon. This was great.
Whenever it works for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.